everybody in the mainstream media has pointed out that it was just another bold-faced lie.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Now, Barry Swicker's book, what was it called? Media...
Towers of Deception.
Towers of Deception. Marcus, what do you think about how much time Barry explains about the sort of mental mindset that is reinforced or destroyed, as the case may be, by powerful media? And how do you think alternative media should position itself? Because I think probably the Noam Chomskys, the Amy Goodmans feel that their audience is not mature enough to handle the truth. That, you know, you've got dear Les Jamieson and Frank Morales at St. Mark's Church just sort of slugging it out, and everybody's turning their back because there's probably so much for so many people to hide. The left guard feels they have to keep guarding the population from the truth. What do you think on that, Marcus?
I'm reminded of the famous quote from Thomas Jefferson. Everybody's heard it at one time or another. Quote, "If a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it expects what never was and never will be."
Wow.
And I guess that Jefferson had trepidations way back in those days that if people weren't told the truth, there would be an undermining of the republic and liberty, and essentially there's remember George Orwell, 1984. There was the Ministry of Truth, which controlled the media, and important information disappeared down the so-called memory hole. And certainly that's what's happening in America and throughout the world today. Maybe it always has, but thanks to rapid fluid information flow, greater numbers of people than ever are becoming aware of this inconsistency with the media. And it was Barry Swicker's book. There was a quote at the beginning of one of the chapters from ex-CIA Director William Colby. And William Colby said something to the effect that every important person in media it works with the CIA. And I believe that when William Colby would have made that quote, would have been some years back, perhaps, when there were still at least 20 or 30 major companies controlling the media. And according to the latest release of Ben Bagdikian's Media Monopoly, the number of major companies that now control most of the media in America has now dwindled down to just 5.
Right.
So if William Colby's inside remark is correct, and now the number's down to 5, then we can't expect anything more of the mainstream media than. And here's my point with regards to Democracy Now! And so forth. I would expect that the more prominent alternative media would be held hostage to the same chain of command, so to speak.
Yes, yes.
Right.
You know, Marcus mentioned the media and CIA. I would urge everybody in the audience to look up on Google Operation Mockingbird, which was a CIA agenda, an actual program to basically to infiltrate and take over and control the media. And this has been the case, I think, for decades, and even going back further, people should know that J.P. Morgan in the early, I think, 20s bought, I think, 25 media companies, or newspapers, I believe it was 25 newspapers, and this has been the history of media consolidation under these moguls, these conglomerates, and they know that they control information, and by doing so, they control politics, economics, and mass consciousness. And this continues to be the case, which is why independent alternative media is so important. There were 3,500 people at this conference, which is 1,000 more than the previous conference, which was in St. Louis. So it shows that there is a growing interest and urgency by people recognizing the need for alternative media to also consolidate and gather around the need to take back our media.
Marcus, when you were saying earlier about the prison population, or those that are out of prison, or those that are out on the streets, what would your guess be of the percentage of our entire population of these people? Because it seems that would be the numbers that we could rely on, that we could bring back into our society and thus grow.
I feel foolish that I don't have that statistic.
Well, let's do that for future shows, because I'm thinking when even over and above Noam Chomsky and Amy Goodman not talking about 9/11 truth because the audience can't handle it, how about the fact that these people that are on the street, that are disenfranchised, who have been in prison maybe because they are opponents of powerful forces that want to hold this system in the way it is, if that energy was released through media, that we're using all of our talent, all of our God-given ability, wouldn't that be something to a benchmark for alternative media to achieve?
Well, yeah, but let's back up. Certainly there may be at best a relative tiny percentage of ex and current prisoners who could be described the way you just said it. Sounded great. It basically
I'm thinking
boils down to so-called political prisoners. But because of the huge ill-conceived war on drugs, by some experts' analysis, virtually everybody that is in prison or has been in prison on a drug crime could conceivably be described as some sort of political prisoner. But certainly these drug crime perpetrators, most of them didn't think of themselves as outlaw politicians or political prisoners when they got busted.
Right. No, I'm just thinking your drug of choice determines how you're accepted by society, because I've seen some real out-of-control alcoholics partying who are in very powerful positions during the week. But in any case, what's your vision, Marcus, of what alternative media could do now that the internet is available and so far seems to be neutral?
Well, uncorrupted alternative media certainly can bring the most accurate inside story on things and events that otherwise will be debased and corrupted by other media, whether it's left media, right media, or pseudo alternative media. I'm a big fan of Vanity Fair magazine, for example, but I was so disappointed a few issues back when they printed the inside story of how all the breakdowns at NORAD and the jets that failed to intercept any of the supposed jetliners, and how that came about. And it was so carefully explained, and they were the first to release the actual transcripts of flight controllers and so forth. And in the end, Vanity Fair had essentially provided its left guard function and put everything back into perspective to dispel any of us wacko conspiracy theorists about why jets couldn't intercept jetliners.
Right, Marcus, I remember that Vanity Fair article. It was interesting. It's almost as Vanity Fair needed to put out a softball article after a very hard-hitting article a few issues earlier done by a writer named Nancy Jo Sales, in which she writes about the phenomenon film called Loose Change 2. These three young college guys who put together a documentary which just took the country and the internet by storm, with over 20 million downloads on Google.
20 million downloads.
Yes,
wow.
yes, over that, and continues to be, I think, an important piece. Although there's been since, some analysis pointing out a few weak points in the film, but overall, I think it was very important
for two young kids.
For three young guys to put this together was phenomenal, and it showed a lot of solid research and, of course, visuals of the towers coming down, of the Pentagon, of Pennsylvania, that do not get shown on mainstream TV. So anyway, this article came out on Vanity Fair earlier, prior to this article you're referencing about NORAD. And that same month that the Vanity Fair article came out, there was an article in the Washington Post about NORAD basically lying to the Keene-Hamilton Commission. And that Washington Post article is the one to refer to, I think, for much more detail and depth on the issue.
What do you think about that, Marcus, to kind of play off one media with the other, the Washington Post versus Vanity Fair?
When they play off each other like that, I'm afraid it just creates a higher noise to signal ratio.
Can you explain noise to signal? You told me about that the other day, and I thought that was...
Well, that's an old electronics term, but the more noise, the less signal is coming through.
I see.
Whether it's Democrats versus Republicans, or it's Vanity Fair versus Washington Post, the real signal strength is diminished, and you get a lot of back and forth noise.
I think that's what a good legal system is supposed to remedy.
Yes. Speaking of a legal system, you know what I think needs to be put in place? Danny Schechter of MediaChannel.org pointed this out. There are no laws to punish journalists or media organizations for lying to the country. Right. And for God's sakes, every media company, every anchor person who lied, who served as megaphone for the government in the run-up to the Iraq War, and this is just about every anchor person. They're all complicit for those lies. They should have been, fired, fined, sent to jail for 1,000 years for perpetrating those lies.
Wow. What do you think about that, Marcus?
Well, number one, certainly, I would say that a significant percentage, if not a majority of them, in my opinion, weren't knowingly lying. Oh. But they weren't necessarily doing their job either. And secondarily to that, if they work for media companies that are ultimately ruled by one of these five major media oligopoly companies, then they were just doing their job. They were just following their marching orders, and it would be hard for me to find them culpable.
Oh, I guess
emotionally, that's how I feel about it.
I see what you're saying.
But most news people,
because he's worked at a newspaper.
Most news people are basically given assignments on what to work on, and sometimes when they get their teeth into something that is threatening, they're taken off the story.
Right, I got it. Marcus, we only have 1 minute left, and I'm going to ask the control room to put up how to contact me. So I'm really looking forward to doing future shows with you on this topic, because I think the better informed we are, the better we're going to operate. Any last thoughts?
No, I'm happy to be here, and also I wanted to say to Les, I'm familiar with your work, and I appreciate it, and I hope you keep up the good fight out there.
Have to. There's no relenting. Thank you, Marcus.
Thanks, Marcus, and I want to thank the people in the control room who are supporting this public access production. Joe Friendly's the director, and Lester Vexi is the technical director. My name is Paula Gloria, and you have been listening to Farther Down the Rabbit Hole. So that was really nice.